let's talk about it. Ford and GM just announced that they're no longer going to allow you to tow over your gross vehicle weight rating and exceed your payload. And you heard that right. Not only have they done a great job with their interiors, and GM has done a phenomenal job on their refresh for the exterior, they basically said that they're adding scales to the truck. And I've said this in the past, I knew this day was coming. When I saw that they did it on that Ford F-150, I said it's only a matter of time that they do it for the HDs and the Super Duty. But Ram hasn't done it yet. Ram has basically not announced that they're adding onboard scales. Now, I want to know if DOT is the one wanting them to do this, because that will be scary. Because really, at that point, a lot of us are going to start ordering dualies. But I don't agree with Ford and GM. I think that they shouldn't do that. And here's why. It is absolutely not fair to the consumer that Ford and GM will basically add these scales on their trucks, potentially to basically say, if you exceed them, we can void your warranty. And with that being said, if they don't change the way that they do the gross vehicle weight rating, a lot of people are going to always be over. The way that these trucks are built to go to the dealership, they don't have payload. So if you're looking at a Ford F-250, I do know that they raised the gross vehicle weight rating on the diesel to 10,400 pounds, but you're still kind of in travel trailer territory, depending on how big the trailer is. If you're looking at even the smaller 25, 26 foot fifth wheels, I've had people on my channel come on and say, well, I have a half-ton towable fifth wheel, but we bought a 3/4 ton truck just to be safe. And they said that they were still close on the payload, because they said that the trailer was advertised to have a 1,100 pound payload on the website, but when they got the trailer and went to go get it weighed, that it was like closer to 2,000 pounds. I want to say that it was over 2,000 pounds. So they have to do something with these trucks. They have to change the GVWR numbers so that they can accommodate more payload. And that's also for the dualies too. The dualies should have a 14,800 pound GVWR, and no one should be required to step up into a different class of truck. They just need to change the numbers. Because of all the extra safety crap that these trucks have, because of all the other regulations with the emission stuff on the diesel, those things have made these trucks a lot heavier. So you can't expect people to be able to stay within their payload capacities because of it. And I think that the manufacturers need to get together and get their act together too, and start pushing back on EPA and the DOT and say, hey, if you're going to require all this crap, what are you going to give? What are you going to do to make sure that the consumers can still afford to buy these trucks and still be able to tow a trailer with them? But I can guarantee you that they're not going to do that. They're not going to meet with DOT and EPA and say, hey, we need to do something about this heavy equipment on our cars. You know, there's a lot more things that you guys require from us. Therefore, they're making the trucks heavier, which means they're taking away from the payload. Now, obviously, I know you guys are probably going to say this in the comment section, well, just get a lower trim level. But a lot of people who buy their trucks, they like the comfort amenities that they have. So it shouldn't be on the consumer to have to give up stuff because of the manufacturers not able to have, you know, the strength to go back to the government and say, hey, we need to change the numbers. The numbers need to be changed, or they need to change the way they do payload. I think personally that it should be up to the consumer to get their truck weighed, because I do think that these trucks are more than capable. I know that easily this truck can tow a 20,000 pound toy hauler, but you will exceed your payload by almost 1,500 pounds, if not more in some cases. And if the trailer that you're looking to buy keeps you within the axle, as a lot of people say in the comment section, then there shouldn't be a reason why they can't change the way that this stuff is done. But I understand why they do it. You know, you have to understand this stuff is there to prevent them from getting in trouble. If you buy airbags for your truck, they do the same thing. They basically tell you that this does not increase your gross vehicle weight rating. You don't have to take my word for it. I'll show it to you here in the video. If you go online, if you buy those things, in the disclaimers, they will tell you that you cannot buy those upgrades and expect them to increase any capacity. Whatever your truck says, you cannot exceed it. So for those who like to go out and buy airbags, well, I can exceed my GVWR because now these airbags are rated for something crazy. It doesn't matter. So everyone has their bases covered, and I'm telling you, this is the way that the manufacturers can start saying, hey, if you exceed your GVWR, your payload capacity, we're not going to pay anymore. If you have a mechanical failure, it's on you now to pay for it. But I really want to know if somehow, some way, that this is part of the Department of Transportation. Like, I really am interested to see how this all shakes out, because something tells me that these scales were not just the manufacturer's idea. I understand that if you exceed the GVWR of your truck, especially guys who go to Lowe's and put like a bunch of bricks in the back of the truck, and you know, they could be 4,000 or 5,000 pounds of weight back there. I mean, you could do some damage to the suspension. You could do damage to your frame in some cases. But I really am interested to see why these came about. Ram hasn't done it yet though. So if they do it, I'm almost willing to bet money that this is something that is beyond the manufacturer. So every time something new comes out, it always takes a little bit of time for it to catch steam. And then over time, that's when it blows up, and now it's a big deal. Just like with the emission stuff. It used to not be a big deal to delete your truck, but now all of a sudden they started cracking down on shops. And if you get it done, you could get fined yourself. So a lot of people won't even do it anymore. But here's what I recommend to anyone who's looking to tow a trailer, especially a big one. I strongly recommend, number one, you really understand your payload in GVWR, because if you're looking to get a new one, they're gonna have these scales on them. It's not an option. You can't delete it. And I'm pretty sure that it weighs something too. So not only are they adding something on your truck to monitor what you're towing, it's gonna add more weight to it probably, which will take away from your payload. So I don't understand that. I hope Ram doesn't do it, but I'm pretty sure they will. But number one, understand your payload. Understand all your towing numbers. I have this series I've done called Weight Watchers Truck Edition. I've done quite a few videos now. The newer ones are better. Watch those first, and they'll give you a really good understanding of that. The second thing I recommend that you do is that you go through on Ford's and GM's towing guide and really get an idea of the payload numbers. They have it all on there. And what I normally do is whatever they show on there as the payload, I would deduct about 500 pounds. And from there, I would just base that off of how much trailer you can tow. Obviously, you have to take your family off of that number too. And you have to take off a few other things like your gear, your trailer hitch, all those things. So that's the second thing I would recommend. Just understand the payload capacities on the towing guides. You can go to the 2022s for the Fords and the 23s for the GMs. One thing I love about the GM trucks, I have a GM, is they put all the numbers on the door. So you could go to a dealership and just take a picture of the numbers. So yeah, last thing I would say is definitely start looking at dualies. Dualies are going to be really popular because all it takes is for one or two people to get hit with this. And from there, you know, people are going to have to start upgrading their trucks. But I don't know. I could be making a big deal out of nothing. But in the comment section, does it not concern you a little bit that they're doing this? It concerns me because they've done nothing to help the consumer, especially with all the extra stuff that we don't want. Ask any consumer who actually drives these trucks, do you want this emission stuff on your diesel? Everyone would say no. And quite honestly, these things are worse than, you know, really the pollutants. I mean, if you go into a regen, it literally dumps diesel fuel in the DPF to heat it up, you know, and so you're wasting fuel just for the crap that they put on here. It's stupid. I mean, the urea stuff is so sensitive. If you leave it out in the sun, which if you definitely do that, you better not put it in your truck. It'll damage your system, and then it's not cheap to get this stuff fixed. So all I can tell you is 100% do your research, and hopefully GM, Ford, and Ram can get together and adjust the numbers up. I mean, a 14,000 pound GVWR is not high enough for a dually anymore. A dually diesel should have at least 6,000 pounds of payload. And I'm not talking about higher trim levels. I'm talking about, I see base trucks that have barely 5,500 pounds. And so it's because of the equipment that you need. If you need a fifth wheel hitch, if you need the fifth wheel prep package, I mean, that stuff's going to weigh something. So the transmissions are heavier because of the fact that, you know, more gear, although Ford did a pretty good job. And of course, GM did a pretty good job with the weight, because I think the weight only went up by a little bit, but still the transmissions overall are still heavy. But hopefully this is helpful. I'm hoping that we can get some conversations going on this, and hopefully we can start going in and start speaking out against these things, because payload is really low on some of these trucks and it shouldn't be. So in the comment section, let me know your thoughts. See you guys in the next video.